politics can take a toll on even the strongest families. Now that her dad's back in office for a second term, let's look back on how it's all affected the life of Ivanka Trump.
Even before she became the president's daughter, Ivanka Trump has lived her entire life in the public eye. At just 9 years old, she became a target of the tabloids during her parents' infamous breakup, which played out in real time in the media and in movies.
Don't get mad, get everything.
So it's no surprise that as an adult, Ivanka has maintained a tightly controlled public image of herself and her marriage to fellow real estate mogul Jared Kushner. But certain cracks in her facade, like her much-memed meeting with Justin Trudeau and the time she forgot to wear her wedding ring on The View, have led to speculation about what's really going on with her marriage to Jared Kushner. Here are some clues. If you asked most married couples to compliment each other, one of the last things they would cite would be a resume item. But Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner aren't most couples. Prior to joining Trump's administration, they were both leaders of powerful, multi-billion-dollar real estate organizations. Ivanka held a leadership role in the Trump Organization, and Jared was CEO of Kushner Companies, his family's real estate empire, as well as majority shareholder and publisher of The Observer. As you can imagine, these executive positions, while clearly rewarding, consume a lot of time and energy. Ivanka has said she works 12 to 14-hour days, and speaking to Harper's Bazaar, she boasted her pride in always arriving before everyone else at the office. That kind of drive must have been a huge turn-on for Kushner, who actually met Trump during what was supposed to be a business meeting, and that transactional nature has continued throughout their marriage. The couple's wedding program even allegedly included a marketing flyer for one of Donald Trump's golf courses, a claim which Ivanka denies. But it's kind of believable, considering how Kushner described their marriage to Vogue, saying, quote, "I would say she is definitely the CEO of our household, whereas I'm more on the board of directors." Whoa. Calm down there, Casanova. Even their date nights are reportedly business-oriented, as he most likes to take her to his newest property acquisitions. Unlike her party girl half-sister Tiffany, Ivanka Trump has always seemed like an old soul. She told Purple magazine, quote, "Partying was never a major part of my life. I don't drink a lot. I've always preferred quiet settings like dinners." It's probably the reason Ivanka and Chelsea Clinton have gotten along so well.
Our friendship didn't start in politics. It certainly is not going to end because of politics.
Outside of that high-profile friendship, though, Ivanka was never really one for the scene. According to Esquire, Kushner tends to surround himself with older captains of industry, which was evident at his 35th birthday celebration, in which one guest described the median age of partygoers as somewhere near 70. And this probably works just fine for Ivanka, who once said, quote, "Jared and I will go walk around neighborhoods and look at properties that he owns and that I own, but that's fun." So chances are you won't find these guys at your friendly neighborhood kegger anytime soon. Though Ivanka is definitely more extroverted than her husband, neither she nor Jared come close to matching the huge personalities of their fathers. Donald Trump is obviously less poised than his daughter, and Charles Kushner, Jared's father, is also a tenacious businessman with a controversial personality. In fact, both Donald Trump and Charles Kushner have also been embroiled in their share of scandals, with Kushner actually serving 2 years in jail for a series of bizarre crimes, including tampering with elections and arranging to blackmail his own sister. So while they both stem from outlandish dads, Ivanka and Jared are actually pretty polished, all things considered. For all of the speculation and media scrutiny surrounding the Trump family, Jared and Ivanka's marriage actually shows no signs of strain. Granted, they play everything extremely close to the chest, but most normal marriages would falter under the stress of just the 24-hour media coverage, let alone the privacy intrusion of a presidential election. But Jared and Ivanka's marriage is anything but normal, and the introduction of the stressful world of politics has only seemed to strengthen their bond. Ivanka told Vogue that Jared is her ideal partner because his drive and ambitions match her own, saying, quote, "His own dreams are bold, and I love that in someone." Of course, that's just one way to put it. Another source close to the couple, speaking to Esquire, described them a bit more cynically, saying, quote, "Power, power, power, power. Jared's got plenty of money, but the only way he can separate himself from his family is power. They're a great match because that's also what Ivanka is after." They grew up with 2 different moms, but the same billionaire father. So it's safe to say the relationship between Ivanka and Tiffany Trump, the only daughters of President Donald Trump, has been anything but conventional. Tiffany, the only child from Donald Trump's marriage to Marla Maples, grew up in Calabasas, California, about 3,000 miles away from her half-sister Ivanka's home in Manhattan's Trump Tower. Despite the distance, not sharing a mother and a large age gap, Ivanka is 12 years older than Tiffany, the two reportedly remained very close. Ivanka told People magazine, "We would see each other on all of the holidays and talk to each other frequently. She's my little sister. I've been close to Tiffany her whole life and I really love her." Unsurprisingly, growing up in California greatly limited Tiffany's physical access to her father and her father's fortune. As a result of the distance, Tiffany turned to her sister to ask for help getting her piece of the pie. In her book, The Trump Card, Ivanka recalled a time in which Tiffany went to Ivanka for advice on how to ask their father for a credit card. Ivanka wrote that Tiffany just wanted some of the same privileges the rest of her siblings enjoyed. So Ivanka used her own influence on her father to push the request through. The art of that deal involved Ivanka convincing Donald Trump to give her a credit card with a small monthly allowance as a Christmas gift that year, and the strategy worked. It wasn't the last time Ivanka would step up to help her sister find her way into the glitzy lifestyle of her East Coast-based family. Some might assume that because of Donald Trump's major presence in New York City that he was the one who landed Tiffany an internship with Vogue magazine in 2011, but it was actually Ivanka who arranged the whole thing. Hey, what are big sisters for? For some, the presence of Ivanka and Tiffany in Donald Trump's presidential campaign was highly instrumental to earning him votes for the White House, particularly when it came to tempering the subject of his alleged scandals with women. Their shared time spent on the campaign trail may have also strengthened the relationship between the sisters, who appeared to be inseparable as they traveled across America on behalf of their dad. That said, the influence of the sisters was not completely equal the whole time. Ivanka is often described as playing an influential and powerful role on her father's life. So much so that some people even joked she'd be filling in as First Lady in the White House. Meanwhile, Tiffany was the only adult-age Trump kid who did not become part of Trump's transition team, and she wasn't even fully visible on the promotional front until later on in the game. It's no secret that Ivanka is presented as the golden child among her siblings. Trump himself has admitted to favoring his eldest daughter in the past, and so have Ivanka's brothers. Tiffany, meanwhile, appears to be playing catch-up when it comes to her relationship with her father after years and years of literal distance. To this day, she's often referred to as the forgotten Trump, much to her mother Marla Maples' dismay. With Ivanka at her side, though, there's a good chance Tiffany's not going to be forgotten again anytime soon.
Before Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner became an instantly recognizable duo, Ivanka was an outsider to the Kushner clan, and it was no easy task to penetrate that fortress. So what's Ivanka's relationship with her in-laws like? The Kushners and the Trumps have one thing in common: real estate. Charles and Cyril Kushner made their fortune off of New Jersey real estate to the tune of approximately $2 billion, according to New York Magazine. Charles' parents were Holocaust survivors who escaped Poland and fled to the United States in 1949. They found a community of fellow survivors in Newark, and the area became deeply significant to the family. Of their 4 children, Charles showed intense motivation and drive, always keeping the family mantra close to heart: think like an immigrant, act like an immigrant. Charles and his father partnered on a real estate company that grew into an empire. While the Kushners' business skills certainly contributes to their story of power and authority in the United States, it's really their devotion to their Jewish faith that influenced their initial reluctance to accept Ivanka. The Kushners were extremely financially generous in supporting their Jewish community, as Esquire notes, and valued their elite status within that group. A source told New York Magazine that Charles loved that when he walked into a synagogue, the rabbis approached. Charlie saw himself as, quote, the Jewish Kennedy. But the Kushner story is not without scandal. Charles went to prison for illegal campaign donations and tax evasion after being indicted by Chris Christie.
Once again, Charles, for all that you have done for the Democratic Party.
He finished his sentence in 2006 and was pardoned by then-President Donald Trump in 2020. While Charles Kushner has 4 children, Jared Kushner, his eldest, seems to be the one Charles picked to carry on the family legacy. As New York Magazine notes, following Charles's imprisonment, Jared became the face of the family. When they bought the famous 666 Fifth Avenue, Jared told the outlet that he got the better office. Jared said of his dad, "The only fight we had, he wanted me to take this corner instead of him. I think it's the better view, but my father insisted."
You know, my father's just an incredible man. We're very, very close, and he's always been a great mentor and friend.
The two remain close, and Charles is extremely protective of his son, especially when it comes to the media. He said to Gabriel Sherman, the author of the New York Magazine article, "Be nice to my son. We've been killed enough by the press. Just because I've been killed, don't kill him." While Charles is extremely protective of Jared, he's also full of praise for him. He said of Jared, "He was the best son to his father in jail, the best son to his mother who suffered terribly, and he was a father to his siblings."
No matter what Charlie did, he was going to stand by his side, but I also think he needed Charlie's guidance at that point.
There's an interesting parallel between the Kushner children and the Trump children. In speaking of Jared, the New York Times wrote that, like Trump's children, Kushner grew up in a life of extreme privilege. So how did Jared and Ivanka meet? Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner met through business. Friends in a real estate company set up a business lunch with the optimistic idea that they could put their combined financial experience to good use. Well, the meal went from business to personal. They started dating in 2007, and since they were both from famous families, their relationship quickly became noteworthy. The parallels between the two made the relationship seem that much more fitting. They were both 25, both had famous fathers, often for contentious reasons. Both were immersed in the world of real estate, and both had proven themselves on their own, though we're not saying that they're exactly self-made. Ivanka later reminisced to Vogue about that fateful lunch and said of the friends who orchestrated the event, "They very innocently set us up thinking that our only interest in one another would be transactional. Whenever we see them, we're like, the best deal we ever made." While some saw Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner as a match made in heaven, Charles and Sarah Kushner did not. In her 2019 book, Kushner Inc., Vicky Ward writes about how Jared's parents were horrified by their relationship. Their reason, as Ward notes, was that they didn't like the idea of their son marrying outside of their faith. Ward goes on to say, "The idea was particularly offensive to Sarah, who had raised the children. They were her world, and her world was the closed, conservative Jewish culture she had grown up in." Jared was raised in the modern Orthodox tradition, which means that one lives within the secular world while still closely adhering to religious customs. For the Kushners, their faith came first, and they expected their children to adhere to this mindset as well. So it was actually Jared's mother, Sarah, who told him to back off from his relationship with Ivanka, according to Esquire. Though it's much less circulated, the Trumps may not have always been pleased with Ivanka's choice either. When he was president, Donald Trump reportedly said several times that he could have had Tom Brady for a son-in-law, but instead got Kushner. While there's no evidence that Brady and Ivanka dated, it shows both families weren't always happy with the situation. With so much pushback over their relationship, it might not be a huge surprise that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump broke up for a hot minute. The entire family, even Jared himself, was deeply immersed in Judaism. According to The New Yorker, when Jared was at Harvard, his loyalty to his family and faith came through equally. He called his parents every day, and on Fridays he ate in a kosher dining hall. The Kushner family wanted Jared to marry a Jewish woman. Meanwhile, there's Ivanka, raised Presbyterian, who was often seen wearing a cross in her younger days. So Jared and Ivanka broke up in 2008, but it didn't last long. Only 3 months later, they reconnected at a party, which was hosted by Wendy Dang Murdoch, who is married to media mogul Rupert Murdoch from 1999 to 2013. As Ward notes, neither Ivanka nor Jared knew that they'd bump into each other at the event, but that was enough to get the ball rolling again. However, Ivanka still had a ways to go before she was accepted by the Kushner parents. Ivanka Trump agreed to convert to Judaism. It was really the only way a long-term relationship with Jared Kushner would work. Ivanka studied with Rabbi Haskell Luckstein, and it was something that seemed to be a positive experience for her. When she was in the process of converting, she told New York Magazine, "I am studying, and it's been an amazing and fulfilling experience for me. One of the jokes I first started making when Jared and I first started dating is, I'm a New Yorker, I'm in real estate, I'm as close to Jewish with an ish naturally as anyone can start off." While this might have been Ivanka's take, Charles Kushner wasn't easily convinced. Bob Summer, the publicist for the Kushner companies, told Esquire that Charles put Ivanka to the test when it came to her conversion. He said, "This wasn't like talk to a rabbi, read a couple of paragraphs. It was hard and difficult, and it was on Charlie's terms." New York Magazine noted, too, that Sarah Kushner took a long time to warm up to the idea, but Ivanka persisted and wound up proving herself to the Kushners. So finally, in 2000, 2009, they were ready to welcome her into their family, and Jared gave Ivanka a 5.22-carat diamond engagement ring. Their wedding marked a major turning point in Ivanka's relationship with the family. After an eventful and often challenging dating period, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner finally got married on October 25, 2009. The wedding was as massive and expensive as one would expect of any Trump event. They hosted their 500 guests at the Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Best of all, for the bride, the wedding marked a major turning point in Ivanka's relationship with her in-laws. After putting Ivanka to task in her conversion process to Judaism, Charles Kushner was allegedly extremely warm in his speech. A guest at the wedding told Esquire that Charles essentially said, "Look, everyone thinks she's great, but being Jewish is just unbelievably important to us, and she's not Jewish. It's a problem for me, a genuine problem. Then I watched and got to see she's in love with my son, and it wasn't what I thought in the beginning. I feel right about it." It seems both Charles and Cyril were eventually delighted about the match. In her book, Kushner, Inc., Vicky Ward quoted Bob Summer, the family's publicist, who said, "By the time the wedding took place, Charlie and Cyril were effusive about their new daughter-in-law. According to Summer, Ivanka had not just passed the tests, she had far surpassed Charlie's expectations. She had also charmed Charlie, who would proudly explain to a friend that she really wanted to be a Kushner. So with that momentous day, Ivanka was officially a member of the family." While the Kushners were initially skeptical about Ivanka Trump, the arrival of another woman in the family was evidence that Ivanka didn't need to take it personally. Jared Kushner's younger brother, Josh, began dating supermodel Karlie Kloss in June 2012, and the outlet notes that it's unclear where they first met. Their budding relationship became public when Josh attended the after-party for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Kloss was a model for the brand for years and officially became an angel in 2013. However, when it came to being welcomed by the Kushner family, Kloss had an even harder time than Ivanka did. Ward wrote in Kushner, Inc. that friends of the family refused to call her anything but, quote, the lingerie model. Ward wrote that Josh told others he wasn't allowed to bring Kloss to any family parties, and Charles and Cyril refused to even meet her for 6 years. Ward writes that Charles was hard on Josh, and he openly expressed his disdain for his son's choice, allegedly telling his son, "Josh, we expect you to do the right thing. The person you are with is not the right person." Kloss, like Ivanka, ended up converting to Judaism to marry Josh, but it wasn't as easy an initiation as it was for Ivanka. In fact, Josh's relationship made Ivanka seem that much better in the Kushners' eyes. The Kushners eventually warmed up enough to Karlie Kloss that she and Josh Kushner married in 2018 in a small Jewish wedding in upstate New York. There were only 80 people at the celebration, and while the Kushner parents finally acquiesced to the arrangement, they weren't completely happy about it. As Vicky Ward writes in her book, despite Kloss's efforts, the fissure was not closed by the nuptials. Charlie and Cyril admitted to a friend that they had not been asked to play any part in planning the wedding. Interestingly, the sudden comparison between their two daughters-in-law made Ivanka Trump that much more appealing in their eyes. Ward wrote that if friends pointed out that they were being hypocritical, being hesitant about Kloss while gradually accepting Ivanka, they had a rebuttal ready, telling people that Ivanka was different. Ward explained, "She was a Trump. She was also, like Jared, real estate royalty, and she'd attended an Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania. Kloss grew up in Webster Groves, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, and hadn't even been to college when she and Josh began dating. So oddly enough, it was a new Kushner relationship that made it clear how much Charles and Cyril had come to like Ivanka." While Ivanka Trump is officially in the inner circle of the Kushner clan, she's had a tricky relationship with Kloss. Ivanka and Jared Kushner attended Kloss's wedding to Josh Kushner, but the two women have had a complicated relationship due to politics. Kloss is an outspoken Democrat, which created friction between herself and Ivanka and Jared, who both took on senior roles in Donald Trump's White House. On Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, Cohen asked Kloss if she agreed with the family's politics.
I'm sure I'm not the only person in this country who does not necessarily agree with their family on politics.
Kloss wrapped up by saying that she voted as a Democrat in 2016 and planned to do the same in 2020. Ivanka has reached out with an olive branch a few times on social media. In March 2019, Ivanka posted a video on Twitter of Kloss hosting Project Runway and said, "Gosh, Karlie, it's happening. Amazing. Project Runway. Karlie is host." However, Kloss didn't respond to this praise, nor does she follow Ivanka on Twitter or Instagram. After the riot on the U.S. Capitol building in January 2021, Kloss tweeted a message directed at Donald Trump, writing, "Accepting the results of a legitimate democratic election is patriotic. Refusing to do so and inciting violence is anti-American." Someone commented, "Tell your sister-in-law and brother-in-law." Kloss replied, "I've tried." While the Kushners gave Ivanka Trump a hard time early on, it's not like either family can boast superiority. In many ways, their compared wealth and their scandals put them on equal footing. Charles Kushner served his time for tax evasion and illegal campaign contributions, as well as paying a sex worker $10,000 to sleep with a brother-in-law with whom he was feuding, having it filmed to send to his sister. The Trump family also has scandals, and like the Kushners, they center around the patriarch. Donald Trump has several allegations of sexual assault, all of which Trump has denied. His companies have also gone bankrupt several times throughout his business years, and then of course his term in the White House was checkered with controversy. Keeping all of this in mind, it's unrealistic for one family to lord superiority over the other. Mary Trump, who has now become an outspoken critic of her famous uncle, was critical of the Kushners' superior attitude at Ivanka and Jared's wedding. In her book, Too Much and Never Enough, Mary Trump said she disliked Charles' jokes that Ivanka was barely good enough to join their family. She wrote, "Considering that Charles had been convicted of hiring a prostitute to seduce his brother-in-law, taping their illicit encounter, and then sending the recording to his sister at his nephew's engagement party, I found his condescension a bit out of line." The Kushners were famous and powerful before Donald Trump became president, but his time in the White House pushed Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner into the political arena in a major way by making them senior advisors. So what did the Kushners think of Trump in the White House? Charles opened up to The Real Deal in 2018 and said that while he was a Democrat in the past, he doesn't stand with either party anymore. He said, "I don't share a lot of the Republican beliefs and values on a lot of issues. The Democratic Party that I supported for all the years is not the same Democratic Party of today on a lot of issues that are very near and dear to my heart." He said that he'd likely register as an independent. That being said, Kushner did have considerable praise for Trump, saying, "It's very controversial to say I do believe in President Trump. I think he's done a good job." Kushner added that he thinks Trump is a great leader. The praise did not go unnoticed, as Trump pardoned Kushner in 2020.
The president spending his final days in office wiping away the convictions of close allies and associates.
Trump's statement read, "Since completing his sentence in 2006, Mr. Kushner has been devoted to important philanthropic organizations and causes." However, after the riots at the U.S. Capitol in 2021, Kushner told the New York Times that Trump's behavior was beyond the family's control, so he clearly isn't one-sided.
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong.
With such an eventful courtship, followed by an even more notable term in the White House, Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump have been through it all, and Charles and Cheryl Kushner have been there to support them. When Jared and Ivanka were living in Washington, D.C. during Donald Trump's presidency, Charles and Cheryl came to visit them and their 3 children. The Daily Mail said that staff were loading up a car, implying that the whole family was leaving for a weekend getaway, and that Charles and Cheryl were all smiles. After the Trumps left the White House following the inauguration of Joe Biden in January 2021, the entire Trump clan left for Florida. Ivanka and Jared bought a $24 million mansion in Indian Creek, and it looks like Charles and Cheryl regularly visit. Jared's parents own a home in Florida and regularly stay there, so that they can be closer to their son, Ivanka, and their grandchildren. One obvious reason for the close bond between the in-laws and the young family is that Ivanka seems deeply immersed in the Jewish faith. She frequently shares images of her family actively participating in their religion, like when her children lit the menorah. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner certainly have an eventful story together, but their relationship has grown beyond the early drama. Despite going through the ringer for their relationship, especially on Ivanka's side, they're remarkably similar. All press coverage of Charles Kushner's relationship with Jared indicates that the father openly praises his son and groomed him from all of his children for the role of carrying on the Kushner empire. Likewise, Ivanka, of all her siblings, seems to be the apple of Donald Trump's Trump's eye. The New Yorker goes so far as to say that Ivanka is Trump's favorite. Both Ivanka and Jared have a deep distrust of the media. The Washington Post noted in 2017 that Jared never talks to the press, and Jared himself told Forbes the same thing shortly after Donald Trump's election. Ivanka learned this at a much younger age, where at 9, she was hounded by paparazzi following her father and mother's divorce. She told GQ in 2007, "You know, the media is vicious. They're brutal, present company excluded. It taught me not to trust anyone. You can never let your guard down, and I never really have since that time." Clearly, they're both tight-lipped. So Jared and Ivanka seem like two peas in a gilded pod.
Going by press coverage alone, Donald Trump's first wife, Ivana, and his daughter with her, Ivanka, couldn't appear more different. Sure, they're both blonde, glamorous Trump women, but for as polished and rehearsed as Ivanka comes across, her mother can be brash, irreverent, and controversial. So how does that work as far as their mother-daughter relationship goes? Though the K in her name is undoubtedly appreciated by copy editors everywhere, Ivanka was actually named after her mother, meaning they share the handle Ivana Marie Trump. Ivanka made the revelation on Twitter in 2010, explaining that Ivanka is actually the Czech baby name for Ivana. Her mom also spelled out the details in her 2017 memoir, Raising Trump. Ivana actually won the fight to name Ivanka, or at least that's what she claimed in an interview with ABC News.
He wanted to call Ivanka Tiffany. And I said, oh, my dead body, she's going to be called Tiffany. She's going to be named like Ivana Maria Trump. I decided all names.
It's well known that Donald's approach to parenting is pretty hands-off. In 2005, he told Larry King what his role would be if he ever had children with Melania.
I'm not going to be doing the diapers. I'm not going to be making the food. I may never even see the kids, frankly. Okay?
Ivana concurs with Donald in raising Trump, claiming that although he was a good father to them, she's the one who deserves the credit for raising such great kids. She writes, "I was in charge of raising our children before our divorce, and I had sole custody of them after the split. I made the decisions about their education, activities, travel, childcare, and allowances." A Vanity Fair profile on the Trump half-sisters paints a slightly different picture. Ivana is described as not around much when Ivanka was growing up, due to her obligations as CEO for Trump's Castle Casino in Atlantic City. In her absence, the kids were attended to by a bodyguard and 2 nannies, one of whom Ivanka referred to as a second mother and her closest confidant. In her own book, Women Who Work, which examines the balancing act modern women attempt to achieve between their professional and personal lives, Ivanka cites Ivana as a personal role model. "It was my mother, unapologetically feminine in a male industry, who first embodied and defined for me what it meant to be a multidimensional woman, a woman who works at all aspects of her life." The praise doesn't stop there. In Raising Trump, Ivanka's words are often featured in block quotes like this one. "I'm immensely proud of our mother and excited that she's written this book. She is an amazing mom, teacher, and inspiration to all of us." According to Vanity Fair, Don Jr. took Ivana and Donald's 1992 divorce the hardest, allegedly going so far as not to speak to his father for an entire year afterward. For Ivanka, who was just 9 years old at the time, the fracture of her family was, of course, very personal, but also struck a fear within her that she would no longer be associated with the powerful family name. Looking back as an adult, Ivanka now believes that considering the circumstances of the high-profile split, her parents both did a great job shielding the kids from the negative aspects. She told People in 2016, "They made a real effort to ensure that we knew that they would always be there for us and accessible to us, and it helped us through a difficult time." Though Ivana and Ivanka seem to have made great strides in maintaining their non-traditional family unit, neither has the time of day for the woman who they believe made it that way, Marla Maples, Donald's mistress-turned-wife and mother to his youngest child, Tiffany. In that same with ABC News, Ivana pulls no punches, referring to Marla only as the showgirl.
I never accept her apology. She ruined my family and my marriage.
Ivanka's stance on her ex-stepmom is more reserved. When asked by People if she's close with Maples, Ivanka offered only a clipped response. "I'm not. She was out in California, and really my relationship is with Tiffany." In Raising Trump, Ivana recalls that Ivanka didn't bring home many suitors, and after Ivanka met Jared Kushner, who got Ivana's motherly seal of approval immediately, her dating life effectively came to an end. Ivana describes Jared as intelligent, good-looking, strong, and a great father. Ivana points out that Jared makes Ivanka happy, which is all she truly cares about, and that she views his frank honesty in every situation as a sign that he respects both his wife and his mother-in-law. "It takes real guts to put my daughter in her place, right in front of his mother-in-law, and I'm not your typical mother-in-law. He's either very comfortable around me, or they're comfortable being complimentary and critical of each other, or all of the above." Ivana is quick to point out that Ivanka's elegance comes directly from her. In an interview with Time, she recalls how her daughter would sit on the bathtub rim watching her mom get dolled up every evening after ballet classes and art lessons at the Metropolitan Museum. So you could rightly assume that Ivanka's dyed blonde locks, which Ivana also sports, were just another glamour mom hand-me-down. But in another story from Raising Trump, Ivanka herself reveals that it was only after she had dyed her hair blue as part of her punk phase in the 90s that her mom dragged her to a drugstore and corrected the unforgivable gaffe with a quote, $10 box of Nice and Easy. Ivanka says she learned to love it. The color she picked out was actually 3 shades lighter than my natural color, and I have never looked back.
Ivanka and Melania are just 11 years apart, though they lived very different lives before Melania became Ivanka's stepmother. Ivanka, the daughter of Donald and his first wife, Ivana, lived a charmed life surrounded by the trappings of wealth. She attended private schools, worked as a model in high school, and graduated from the University of Pennsylvania in 2004 before joining her father as vice president of the Trump Organization in 2005. According to GQ, Melania was born and raised in Slovenia before she pursued modeling in Italy, France, and later the US, meeting her future husband at a New York Fashion Week party in 1998. The couple wed in 2005 when Melania was 34 and Donald was 58, with 23-year-old Ivanka reading Bible verses at their wedding ceremony. The year before, Ivanka had praised Melania in a New York Magazine interview, saying, "She's really nice, she's a good person, and we appreciate that. I think we're all getting to know her a little bit more now." Ivana Trump offered a unique take on why Ivanka and Melania were able to have a cordial relationship. In between Ivana and Melania, Donald famously married his second wife, Marla Maples, following a cheating scandal that split up his and Ivana's marriage and exposed Ivana and Donald's 3 children to tabloid scrutiny. Ivana told The Atlantic about Maples, "Ivanka likes Melania fine, because she didn't cause me to break up the marriage like the other one. I don't even want to pronounce her name." In her 2017 memoir, Raising Trump, Ivana even recalled a time when Ivanka stood up for Melania to her, after hurtful comments Ivana allegedly made about Melania at a private lunch were published in the New York Daily News. Ivana explained, "Ivanka called me that day and said Melania was upset about the article. I texted Melania saying, 'You have never done anything wrong to me, and I never have to you. You are in the family, and I would never do anything against the family. Love, Ivana.' That smoothed things over." Ivanka and Melania have both referred to one another as friends, as opposed to having a more traditional mother-daughter relationship. After all, Ivanka was 23 and already a Trump Organization exec by the time Melania married her father in 2005. Not to mention, Melania soon started her own family with Donald, with the birth of their son Barron in 2006. Speaking to Harper's Bazaar a decade later, Melania described Donald's children from his previous marriages as grown-ups, saying, "I don't see myself as their mother, I am their friend, and I'm here when they need me." Similarly, in the acknowledgement section of Ivanka's 2017 book, Women Who Work, Rewriting the Rules for Success, she briefly thanked Melania, writing, "You give generously of your time and attention, and I appreciate your support and friendship." When Ivanka publicly compliments Melania, she often cites Melania's mothering skills, calling her a, quote, "unbelievable mother with a heart of gold" in her book's acknowledgments. Ivanka's April 2017 tweet celebrating Melania's birthday was similarly glowing, as she wrote that Melania was an incredible stepmom. When Melania battled controversy after allegedly plagiarizing parts of her Republican National Convention speech in 2016, Ivanka publicly defended her in an interview with People magazine.
"That you work hard for what you want in life. That your word is your bond, and you do what you say and keep your promise."
At the time, Melania came under fire after portions of her speech were revealed to be undeniably similar to remarks Michelle Obama delivered in 2008.
You work hard for what you want in life. That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
With the Trump campaign denying that the speech had been plagiarized, Ivanka told the outlet that her stepmom is very smart, she's very warm, and she's got an incredible heart. In that same interview, Ivanka also defended Melania's decision to stay home with her son Barron instead of campaigning with her husband, saying, "It's pretty uncommon for wives of candidates to not be on the campaign trail every day, and she made a decision I totally respect, which is that she has a young son, he needs stability, he needs routine. My father's traveling so frequently, and she is an unbelievably remarkably consistent, loving, and reliable figure in Barron's life. Ivanka, who's a mother of 3 children with her husband Jared Kushner, also cited Melania's choice as an influence on her own life. She said, "She takes Barron to school every day, picks him up every day. It's a really remarkable thing, and she's a great inspiration to me as I raise my own children in terms of family first and having the right priorities." Considering both women's reputations as savvy protectors of their public images, Ivanka and Melania don't butt heads for the world to see.
There's one First Lady, and Melania will be an unbelievable First Lady. She's a remarkable person.
And yet, despite White House statements claiming that Ivanka and Melania shared a close relationship, according to Vanity Fair, insiders have continued to allege that the two aren't particularly friendly, describing their relationship to the outlet as frosty. According to sources in a 2019 unauthorized Melania biography, Free Melania, the two women are cordial but not close. The insiders also noted that their ascension to the White House had complicated their previously warm relationship. Author Kate Bennett even presented an alternate take on the real target of Melania's controversial "I don't really care" jacket. Bennett explained, "I believe and still do that the jacket was a facetious jab at Ivanka and her near constant attempts to attach herself for positive administration talking points." Meanwhile, Vicky Ward, who wrote 2019's Kushner Inc., a book that detailed Ivanka and Jared Kushner's rise to power, told Stephen Colbert in 2019 that Melania was the only person who has ever successfully stood up to Ivanka. Ward claimed that in the early days of the Trump White House, Ivanka was making plans to solidify her power in the administration. However, Melania allegedly put a stop to those plans, which reportedly encroached on the First Lady's territory in the White House. While Melania's interviews as First Lady have been few and far between, another unauthorized biography, The Art of Her Deal, The Untold Story of Melania, made additional claims about her life in the White House in 2020. This included details about the seemingly not always friendly dynamic between Ivanka and her stepmother. In the book, author Mary Jordan wrote that Melania and Ivanka's relationship had its tensions, claiming that Melania had been overheard referring to Ivanka as the princess. Melania apparently wasn't the only White House figure to speak about Ivanka in such terms, with a 2017 Vanity Fair report alleging that Trump administration figures called Ivanka Princess Royal behind her back. Meanwhile, The Art of Her Deal also suggested that Ivanka, when she was younger, called her soft-spoken stepmom the portrait, referring to her silent stature. Detailing the differences between Melania and Ivanka's public personas, the Free Melania biography previously noted the way these two women were labeled by White House observers. While Melania was portrayed as a, quote, vapid model trophy wife, Ivanka was allegedly treated differently, depicted in the White House as a savvy career mom. Another Trump administration power struggle between Ivanka and Melania may have taken the form of a White House turf war. According to The Art of Her Deal, issues reportedly arose when Melania initially stayed behind in New York City following Donald Trump's 2016 election win. While this allowed Barron to finish his school year, Melania also allegedly used this time to renegotiate her prenuptial agreement with Donald before her White House arrival. In the meantime, with Melania back in the Big Apple, Ivanka allegedly moved quickly to flex her influence in the White House. Jordan claims in The Art of Her Deal, according to several people, Ivanka was eyeing real estate in the East Wing as well, the domain of the First Lady. Among other proposals, Ivanka suggested renaming the First Lady's office the First Family Office. Unfortunately for Ivanka, Melania's influence was still able to be felt in Washington, even from hundreds of miles away. Jordan wrote, "Melania did not allow that to happen. It was tradition, and she was not going to let her stepdaughter change it. Ivanka's office remained in the West Wing." Once the First Lady took up residence in the White House, she allegedly cracked down on Ivanka, quote, treating the private residence as if it were her own home. Jordan explained, Melania did not like it. She put an end to the revolving door by enforcing firm boundaries.
Donald Trump has 5 children, but there's only one he calls Daddy's little girl. The president's bond with his oldest daughter, Ivanka, has only strengthened as she's grown older. What's there to know about this dad-daughter duo? Here's the truth about Ivanka Trump's relationship with her father. A young Ivanka could always count on her father to answer her phone calls, no matter who he was meeting with in his office at the time. During a 2016 interview with CNN, Ivanka recalled phoning Donald up at 10 years old by calling collect to the Trump Organization from the janitor's closet at school and hearing him put her on speakerphone in front of his peers. Ivanka explained, "It was colleagues. It was titans of industry. It was heads of countries. He'd always tell everyone in the room how great a daughter I was and say cute things and ask me about a test I took. Discussing Donald's parenting style in the early years of growing his business, she added, "He always made us his top priority. He wasn't always physically present, but he was always available." Ivanka previously told a similar story to Harper's Bazaar, recalling how she'd called Donald from boarding school and listened to her father describe her as the smartest and most beautiful to his important guests. She said, "There's no doubting my father values beauty. But in my formative years, I never thought he valued it to the point that it should make me uncomfortable." As Ivanka grew older and became a public figure associated with her father's empire, Donald took more liberties in how he referred to his daughter in public, often joking about her beauty and figure. In 2016, CNN unearthed several examples of Donald making eyebrow-raising comments about Ivanka's appearance on Howard Stern's syndicated radio show. It began in 2004 when Donald agreed with Stern about his daughter being, quote, "a piece of ass." In a subsequent 2006 appearance on the Howard Stern show, the host asked, "Did your daughter get breast implants? She looks more voluptuous than ever." In response, Donald said, "No, she didn't get them. She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall, she's almost 6 feet tall, and she's an amazing beauty." Donald kept the praise coming in a joint appearance with Ivanka on The View that same year. Commenting on the possibility of Ivanka posing for Playboy, he told the hosts, "I don't think Ivanka would do that inside the magazine, although she does have a very nice figure."
I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird!
Donald echoed these claims nearly a decade later in a 2015 Rolling Stone interview, saying of Ivanka, "Yeah, she's really something. And what a beauty, that one. If I weren't happily married and, her father." Before attending business school, Ivanka had pursued a modeling career.
And all because I model because I love to model, and that's really all there is to it.
Donald welcomed his daughter into his business fold as a protege of sorts, where she worked for a decade at his side at the Trump Organization. She joined the organization in 2005, joking to Harper's Bazaar 2 years later that she and her father had been spending way too much time together. Working as a vice president of real estate development and acquisitions alongside her dad and brothers, Ivanka also joined Donald on his reality competition show The Apprentice in 2006. As she told GQ in 2007, she had no interest in being a television star, but rather agreed to appear on the show to, quote, "advance her ultimate goal of becoming a great developer." She added, "I'm not a clone, and I'm not a minion, but I really believe I have this incredible opportunity to take a brand that's so strong, and it's so strong because of my father, and take it to the next level. That's why I did The Apprentice." Ivanka remembered how Donald would test her to make sure she actually wanted to follow in his footsteps, telling Harper's Bazaar, "Even though he knew I always wanted to go into real estate, when I got an offer to work at an incredible fashion magazine, he would be like, 'Oh, that's so cool. Are you sure you don't want to go and do that?' For a while, I was getting a little discouraged." Beyond Ivanka's featured role on The Apprentice, Donald had plans to turn his daughter into a bona fide TV star. In 2016, Jezebel uncovered details of a reality show called Trump Tower Girls, which was greenlit in 2013 by E! And developed by Trump Productions. The show would feature real estate brokers of Trump International Realty alongside beauty queens who competed in Trump International's beauty pageants, with Ivanka at the show's center. The series' aim was allegedly to give Ivanka her own reality TV vehicle just like her dad, with the prize being a job at Trump International. Promo materials reportedly claimed the woman would do whatever it takes to win the week's payday, anything from a chartered plane to Monaco to a 7-figure commission. The Ivanka-centered series never aired after the Trump family withdrew their involvement with the project, with a source alleging to Jezebel, "They felt like their team was too small and they didn't have enough characters who were interesting enough to follow." When Donald ran for president in 2016, Ivanka emerged as an important asset to her father's campaign, with the reality star turned politician going on to win the race. When he met the cries of sexism on the campaign trail, Ivanka publicly touted her father as a feminist to the Sunday Times, claiming, "People talk about gender equality. He has lived it. He has employed women at the highest levels of the Trump Organization for decades, so I think it's a great testament to how capable he thinks women are and has shown that his whole life." She also appeared in television ads selling her father to voting moms, saying, "The most important job any woman can have is being a mother, and it shouldn't mean taking a pay cut." Donald understands the needs of a modern workforce.
My father will change outdated labor laws so that they support women and American families.
Ivanka would go on to enthusiastically stump for her father at the Republican National Convention, targeting female voters in her speech. She told the crowd, "As president, my father will change the labor laws that were put in place at a time when women were not a significant portion of the workforce, and he will focus on making quality childcare affordable and accessible for all." When Donald assumed the presidency, Ivanka joined her father's administration as an advisor. Despite their status as one of the most powerful father-daughter duos in the world, they still used pet names to refer to each other. On the 2016 campaign trail, Donald told attendees at an Iowa rally about a childcare plan Ivanka had been pushing. He said, "She is the one who has been pushing for it so hard. She said, 'Daddy, Daddy, we have to do this.' And it's true. She's very smart, and she's right." Footage later circulated of the president speaking in North Dakota in 2017, where he again cited his adult daughter's daddy nickname.
She's so good. She wanted to make the trip. She said, "Dad, can I go with you?" She actually said, "Daddy, can I go with you?" I like that, right?
Joking about the speech afterwards on The Late Show, host Stephen Colbert cracked about that Donald's comments, "Not weird at all. All of Trump's advisors call him daddy." He name-checked the then press secretary.
Sean Spicer was actually the one who started it.
A 2019 profile of Ivanka in The Atlantic further shed light on the affectionate terms Donald and his daughter shared, noting that the president sometimes calls Ivanka baby in meetings they attend together. While serving as a valuable advisor and representative of President Donald's administration, Ivanka has publicly advocated for his policies, while occasionally standing up for him in interviews. However, Donald's efforts to elevate his daughter into a world leader was met with ridicule in 2017 when Ivanka sat in for him in a meeting at the G20 summit. Among the critical voices was Democratic Representative Maxine Waters, who slammed the administration's decision to send Ivanka as a replacement, telling MSNBC, "Here you have the President of the United States at the G20 summit of international leaders, representing us as the leader of the free world, and so he's going to play politics and give his daughter a chance to have a place in the sun and to be seen at a very important meeting that she knows nothing about." Following the incident, Donald defended his daughter on Twitter, writing, "When I left conference room for short meetings, I asked Ivanka to hold seat. Very standard." Ivanka later experienced another icy welcome at the 2019 G20 summit when video emerged of the first daughter inserting herself into a circle of world leaders, including the French president, the British Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister, and the managing director of the International Monetary Fund. At the time, Ivanka's counterparts appeared to look uncomfortable with her presence. Ivanka is rarely a voice of public dissent within her father's presidential administration, but that doesn't mean she always agrees with Donald's policies. She told Axios that amidst her father's repeated attacks on America's free press, she did not view the media as the enemy of the people. Later, Donald responded to Ivanka's statements on Twitter, writing in part, "She correctly said, no, it is the fake news, which is a large percentage of the media, that is the enemy of the people." In another Axios interview, Ivanka was asked about the administration's controversial policy of separating migrant families at the U.S.-Mexico border, calling it a low point in her White House tenure. She said, "I feel very strongly about that, and I am very vehemently against family separation and the separation of parents and children." Amid criticism that she was complicit in her father's controversial policies, Ivanka told CBS News, "I would say not to conflate lack of public denouncement with silence. I think there are multiple ways to have your voice heard. So where I disagree with my father, he knows it, and I express myself with total candor." President Donald is undoubtedly close with his oldest daughter, with experts breaking down the many ways that Donald and Ivanka appear to communicate their trust and affection in public. Speaking to Refinery 29 in 2018, body language expert Patty Wood observed that the first daughter frequently signals that she wants approval from her father, claiming, "We see her desire to connect with him in many of the photos of them," while Donald sometimes reportedly asserts power over her. Wood claimed that Ivanka has often responded in ways that indicate, quote, she believes she has a certain power in the relationship. According to body language expert Judy James, Ivanka and Donald appear to mimic each other's actions, saying it's a dynastic look, with some frequent mirroring between them to suggest like-minded thinking in professional scenarios, and the respect looks as mutual as the affection. James went on to say, there seems to be an emphatic sense of public posing between Trump and Ivanka, defining them as something of a power duo and reflecting the important role Ivanka holds in the president's White House team. This seems to signal this idea of him displaying a direct heir that he trusts, promotes, and endorses.
Donald Trump's three oldest children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, each hold a unique place in the dynasty built by their dad. But while they appear to be united in support of their father, their dealings between each other reveal a different family dynamic. The first three Trump kids were all born within 7 years of each other. Don Jr. in 1977, Ivanka in 81, and Eric in 84. And they grew up in Manhattan high society, raised by their parents, Donald Trump, and his first wife, Ivana. But Ivanka didn't exactly have the same interests as most uber-rich heiresses growing up. Instead, she spent her time in her dad's office, telling Marie Claire, "I'd sit on the floor and hear him bid out contracts. I just liked it. I always dressed like a girl and acted like a boy."
I've never been very interested in being sort of a wild party girl, an it girl. My dad is very strict.
Decades later, when all three siblings were adults working at the Trump Organization, the three of them operated as a unit. Ivanka wrote in her 2009 book, The Trump Card, "Don, Eric, and I are always sizing up our competition on the other side of the table to determine which one of us might be best suited to a particular negotiation. My brother Don is always reminding me that you don't get what you don't ask for." But it appears that the competitive spirit isn't limited to the conference room.
Challenge that I recognized early on was that we all, my father, my brothers, myself, have extremely strong personalities. We're very competitive.
An often told story in Trump family folklore involves Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric racing down the snowy slopes of Aspen. Of course, Ivanka competed against her dad, telling Marie Claire, "It's in our blood. We're highly competitive." As the story goes, during one particular ski trip, a 7-year-old Ivanka was skiing down the hill when she felt something on her back. She told the outlet, "I realized my dad had taken his ski pole, hooked the back of my jumpsuit, and was pulling me backward so he could basically slingshot himself over the finish line. It was all in good fun, but we're very much like that." Ivanka also looked back on the incident in a 2004 New York Magazine interview with the three oldest Trump kids, adding, "We were sort of bred to be competitive. Dad encourages it." Ivanka and her younger brother Eric cultivated a special relationship that grew out of their parents' divorce. The siblings' family life blew up in 1990 when Trump's affair with Marla Maples went public. Donald eventually divorced Ivana in order to marry Marla. Donald and Marla then added another Trump kid to the family's brood, Tiffany Trump, who was born in 1993, 1 decade after Eric. Donald and Marla would go on to ultimately split in 1997.
I'd rate myself less than a great husband.
Eric admitted that his and Ivanka's bond deepened as a result of their parents' split, revealing to New York Magazine in 2004, "Ivanka took me under her wing and raised me, took me shopping, tried to make me cool." Meanwhile, Eric characterized his older brother Don Jr. as helping him navigate the breakup in a different way. He said, "Donnie, in a way, is like a mentor. He kept tabs on everything that my grandfather taught him over the years and that I was too young to appreciate." 2 decades after their parents' divorce, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric had a new challenge to navigate in the public eye. Trump, who had since married his third wife, Melania, and added son Barron to the mix in 2006, spent the early 2010s building his political profile. Then, in June 2015, he announced his campaign for president with Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric looking on from the audience at Trump Tower in New York. As the family navigated Trump's run for office, Eric frequently offered kind words about his big sister to the press. In a 2016 Fox and Friends interview, Eric responded to Republican Senator Bob Corker's claims that Ivanka would be a strong vice presidential pick, saying, "She's got beautiful looks, right? She's smart. She's got my vote."
I'm proud of who I am. I'm really, really happy to be a Trump.
Following their father's inauguration, Eric appeared on Fox Business in April 2017 to heap further praise on his sister, adding, "She's beautiful in so many ways. She's smart, she's intelligent, she's full of class, and I think that's why people love Ivanka." Whether it was because of her position as senior advisor to the president or her status as Trump's highest-profile daughter, Ivanka received particularly harsh scrutiny following her father's election win. While Eric appeared on talk shows to defend his sister's name in the wake of criticism, older brother Don Jr. struck a different tone, suggesting in an interview with The Atlantic in 2019 that while Ivanka was blessed with the ability to handle any environment, she perhaps didn't understand as well as he did how her life would change once their dad became president. As a 2017 Vanity Fair report said of Ivanka and her husband, Jared Kushner, they had become, quote, exiles on Pennsylvania Avenue. Don Jr. remembered Ivanka's life before the White House and claimed that many wealthy liberals who had previously occupied her New York social circle later turned on her. He told The Atlantic, "She was loved by all the people in the world she wanted to be loved by. I just think I figured it out a little bit earlier than she did that people were going to see us differently after my father won." Eric remained at the Trump Organization when Ivanka left to join Donald Trump's White House administration, and he continued to offer public support of his sister and her work as an advisor to Donald, crediting Ivanka with changing their father's mind about a key policy decision.
And I wanted to understand where I could be an asset to the administration.
Speaking to The Telegraph in 2017, Eric brought up his father's decision to launch airstrikes in Syria, claiming that Ivanka may have used her point of view as a mother to sway her father into taking action against the Middle Eastern nation, which had recently launched a chemical weapons attack that killed scores of citizens, many of whom were children. Eric said, "Ivanka is a mother of 3 kids, and she has influence. I'm sure she said, 'Listen, this is horrible stuff.'" For Ivanka's part, she quibbled with her brother's characterization of her sway over her father's decision, calling Eric's statement a, quote, flawed interpretation of her White House role. She told reporters via Politico, "It was informed at the highest levels of military and state. I, of course, shared my perspective and opinion. It aligned with his own. His decision was incredibly well informed and advised." Throughout the Trump presidency, rumors have circulated about bad blood between Don Jr. and Ivanka. In 2017, Vanity Fair claimed that the investigations into the administration's alleged dealings with Russia had caused a division in the Trump clan, citing White House gossip that Jared Kushner, who served as a White House advisor alongside Ivanka, had possibly leaked incriminating emails from Don Jr. to the New York Times to preserve his and Ivanka's own reputation. A 2019 report in The Atlantic painted a similar picture of sibling rivalry, describing a power struggle between Ivanka and Don Jr. as a, quote, Cold War, observing, "They each had their own teams of allies and advisors. They had grown paranoid that the other's henchmen were planting damaging stories about them in the press." One such story was published by McClatchy in 2018 with the headline, quote, "Trump kids on the campaign trail. Don Jr. wows, Ivanka disappoints." And according to a source for The Atlantic, Ivanka's camp was enraged and suspected that Don was behind the story. Later, Don confronted Ivanka, saying, "Tell your people to stop trashing me to the media." Eric has continually stood by his big sister's side on several occasions when negative headlines about her have emerged. In early 2017, Ivanka was lambasted for being somehow involved in her father's alleged misconduct in a Saturday Night Live sketch.
"She's beautiful. She's powerful. She's complicit."
Ivanka later appeared on CBS News to defend herself, and when her brother was asked about the interview, Eric defended his sister, telling Fox Business, "You see so many critics out there, and I think it's a sad thing. Here's somebody who took their kids out of school and moved down to Washington, D.C., is there to support our father, is taking no salary, and is an amazing talent. And she can bring so many great things to Washington, D.C."
She can be an immense positive force in Washington, D.C., and she should be applauded for that and not criticized.
When Ivanka's appearance at the 2018 Winter Olympics drew jeers from Olympic skier Gus Kenworthy and other Trump family critics, Eric appeared on Fox and Friends to strike back, offering, "I think it's disgusting. That's not what the Olympics is about. Politics should not enter into the Olympics."